It's in the movie, but the point is, people were very suspicious about these drug addicts who moved into their community, free love, radicals who moved into their community, and there was hostility. And the community, as you saw, was kind of Appalachian, even though it was the Catskill Mountains. It wasn't it's not the Jewish Catskills. It's in Greene County, so it's in this real backwoods area. And working class people who were truck drivers, and
There was a lot of unemployment too, right?
yeah, and inbreeding. Two families who lived in this little valley.
Long winters.
Long winters because the mountains were high, so it stayed dark. It sunset really early and the sun rose late, so it was dark. But we were at the service of the community, and we were a consensus-based organization. As you saw, there was no leadership per se, and so this was natural to our modus operandi, was to include people. When people would come up to Lanesville and we worked together, everybody was a video freak. So once you started Lanesville TV, the community became, we weren't holding it proprietary, it was everybody's. We had the equipment, we handed the camera around. It was okay to make mistakes except dropping the camera. And it was at the service of the community, and we were on in the beginning several times a week, and then it got to be too exhausting, so we ended up with just the Friday night screening and then Bart's Cowboy Show on Saturday morning, which included kids and the guy who did the stained glass, the artist down the street. So it's in the movie. People saw themselves in it, so they attended events. When the kayak races on the Esopus, there would be several hundred people in Doyle's bar looking at our show because they were all in it. And again, you have to understand, people hadn't seen themselves on TV before that.
Yeah.
So it was like, whoa, it made people feel important.
But there's certain creative moments that are fascinating, where the imagination just started to go, and it was.
Yeah.
Because
I was really
again,
struck by that.
we didn't have the hierarchical director, crew, talent. Everything, people behind the camera and in front of the camera made suggestions. It was very collaborative, so.
But those two moments, I often would speak about those, and I'm so glad you got them in the film, was when they came around wanting to buy people's houses. They didn't prep people. They just drove up in this big car, and this guy got out and said he wanted to buy it, and people would either say, no, get out of here, or how much, and they had a suitcase full of money. I think but also the UFO. It was it was hysterical. The whole tape was hysterical because everyone, they'll say, well, what did you see? And they'll say, oh, it had green lights flicking, and somebody else said, well, there were red and blue lights, and everyone had their own.
Just like real UFOs.
And people just got hopped on and knew that it was that they were joking, and they became part of that.
Of course, they didn't see it because we put the UFO in after we did the interviews.
Oh.
And the UFO was actually two falsies glued together against a black velvet background. It was the earliest, Luma keying. So the falsies were white, so it was good contrast.
But I was when they were doing Lanesville TV one night, and somebody called up and said he had a card trick he wanted to show. And so they knew he just lived a couple of houses down, so they said, come on over. And then they took the camera over to the driveway, and they showed the car driving up, and this guy gets out, and he has this little card trick, and so you saw the whole thing. Now that inspired me. So I did a thing when I was teaching in San Diego. We did a thing called San Diego Stew, and we made it was like stone soup, and we got people they could come and either do a trick or play a violin or whatever, play a guitar, or bring something for the soup. And we ended up having, actually cooking soup on the air, and it went on all night. It was like a 5-hour show, inspired by 5-day bicycle race. But and we would show people, there's somebody else coming, here they come, you know. And there was a woman who came with bringing her violin case, and she had called and said, do you want some music? And we said, yeah. So we were, where's the music? Where's the music? And then her car comes up, and she comes out with the violin, and we show her opening it up and playing it on the air. So that came directly from the Videofreex.
I have two quick anecdotes. One is one of my favorites about Lanesville TV, and that is the signal was, you know, it was a funky transmitter, and the signal would sometimes, the modulator would sometimes drift. And, you know, if the wind blew down the valley, it would drift. And at one time somebody called up and said, hey, because there was one channel that came from Scranton, Pennsylvania down this valley, which was a couple hundred miles away, but it's line of sight, so it got this, what was it, NBC affiliate, and they said, you know, your signal is, because we were on channel 3, your signal is drifting into channel 4. I want to watch All in the Family. So we said, okay, we'll turn off. So we turned off for a half an hour, and then when All in the Family was over, we turned back on again. So that was like how interactive it was. The other is about media study, and that is in '72 when we covered the correspondence like Roger Mudd. We covered Walter Cronkite and a lot of correspondence. We did a whole like 20-minute segment in 4 more years, which is a great show about the convention, the Republican convention. And we showed like the anchor booth, and you know, the fact that there was a floor director and the guy that says NBC is proud to bring you, you know. And so we showed stuff that hadn't been seen before.
Yeah.
And after that was on, CBS played our show in the in-house network at CBS to show their correspondents, you know, this whole like new way of doing things, which included that behind the scenes. You know, TV had never studied it before. It was just the voice of God. But Walter Cronkite and Huntley and Brinkley and Frank, whatever his name was, you know, white guys sitting in suits. That's what the news was. You never saw, it was always like without, you know, it was the truth because you never saw the process at all. But after they did this, after we showed, Walter Cronkite on the nightly news said, hey, tonight we're going to show you what's going on in the studio. And the camera walked around and he showed everything behind the scenes. And, you know, to my mind, more people saw that than saw our coverage, and probably that was the biggest impact that we had, was Walter Cronkite showing people that he wasn't the voice of God. So, you know, that's sort of the impact, you know, when you're doing this kind of thing, even if you're on the fringes, just like Paper Tiger now, you know, Eva Haller talks about this. You know, you're a drop of water, but when you add these drops of water up, it becomes a wave, you know, and that's the hope that we have now.